Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and on tonight's show, we'll be talking about modern etiquette and how to behave yourself in a variety of situations in today's changing technological world, whether you're in the boardroom or on the plane or just out and about, networking, or even at the dinner table. Did you know that etiquette is important in both our professional and personal lives? 85% of the reason people are able to get a job, keep a job, and move ahead in that job is due to their people skills. And here to give us a lesson on everything you've always wanted to know on modern etiquette in today's technological world is Blais Comeau. Julie is Canada's most quoted etiquette expert. She's the founder of etiquettejulie.com and the author of Etiquette, Confidence, and Credibility. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Julie.
Thank you for having me, Barbara.
If you have any questions for Julie tonight about how to conduct yourself in a certain situation, please feel free to call the number on your screen at any point during the show, and Julie will be pleased to answer your questions and guide you through the particular situation that you might have questions about. So first of all, I'd like to ask you, Julie, how did you get into your line of work, and how does one become an etiquette expert?
You know, it's an excellent question. Basically, Barbara, I became an etiquette expert out of survival. And secret be told, and actually I talk about it at the beginning of my book.
And your book is called Etiquette, Confidence,
and Credibility.
And we've got a screenshot of that cover in case you're wondering about where to get that book. Where can you find it?
On my website, etiquettejulie.com. You can find it on amazon.com, send it abroad to Europe, or amazon.ca.
Wonderful. And when did it come out?
It came out 2 years ago.
Okay.
2 years ago. And I became an etiquette expert out of survival. I'm gauche and I'm left-handed. And, you know, probably like a lot of our viewers, when came, like, you know, that pre-adolescence time when you're like 12, 13 years old, I was what my mother would call pleasantly plump. I had freckles. I still have them. You can see them, but now there's makeup. I had eczema, so I didn't quite fit in, you know. And all I wanted, more than anything in the whole wide world, was to be like the cool kids at the cafeteria. And I'm sure you had them in your school, you know. Yeah. They would walk through that door like they had it. Yeah. And they had that confidence, that credibility. And I was striving for that because I knew that once I could connect with people, that I was kind of okay, that I was kind of cool on the inside. So I started to learn what to do when and how, because as a lefty, as a gauche girl, I would get noticed for my awkwardness, for being different. So I sort of like wanted to fit in. So I started to read Dale Carnegie, Emily Post. And so now what I like to say is that etiquette will give you the confidence, the credibility. That is the competitive edge.
And so how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing training and development for well over 10 years, and I've specialized in etiquette for 5 years now.
And your background is before the world of etiquette?
Yeah, I studied education, and then I went on to have a career in retail. I was in management, and then went on to human resources, specialized in training and development. So it's very natural progression.
All fields have to do with people skills.
You know, you're so right, and that is what I teach. I teach interpersonal skills. So whether it's etiquette, social or business etiquette, international protocol, how to interact with other people from different countries, and intercultural intelligence. Plus, when I started way in the beginning, I also gained a certification from the Canadian Tourism Human Resource Council. So having to do with client services. So always interpersonal skills.
Interesting. And Julie, you have 4 definitions for 4 words that are sometimes used synonymously with etiquette but shouldn't be. So there's ethics, etiquette, protocol, and manners.
Yeah, so allow me to quote from my book, Barbara. So I'm just going to go here to page 22 inside of my book. And, you know, sometimes people use them as synonyms. They're pretty close cousins. Like, there are some parallels, but this is how I like to sum it up. Manners are what to do. Protocol is when to do it. Ethics is why we do what we do, and etiquette is how to do it. So let's take an example of when you're meeting someone. So manners, what to do. You know you have to greet them. Now, if we input the protocol, which is when to do it, so who's going to go first? Is it the client? Is it me? Is it the prime minister? Should it be me? Ethics is why we do what we do. So ethics has to do with the values. So you can think of a code of ethics. So it's very profound. And lastly, the etiquette is how to do it. So if we go back to our greeting, is it maybe going to be a namaste? Are we going to shake hands? Or are we going to do like our close cousins, French Canadians, maybe do la bise? So ethics, etiquette, protocol, and manners are all a little bit different.
Interesting. Do people place the same importance on etiquette now that they did a generation ago? I mean, I know there's so many changes in today's world with the world of technology and, of course, an overall relaxing of formality all throughout North America, whether you're in the workplace or in your personal life. What's your take on the importance of etiquette and what people's stance is on it these days?
Yeah, as I stated just a little while ago, for me, it's the competitive edge. You're absolutely right that there's been a decrease in formality. But for me, etiquette is not about noses or the pinky up in the air. Because when you show up, when you're going to be television host of the year and you're at this wonderful, humongous gala and you're scratching your head, you're paralyzed because is it my bread plate? Is it their bread plate? When you don't know what to do, when and how, you're embarrassed, you're paralyzed, you freeze.
Because you think, what will everyone else think of me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so once you have that knowledge, the etiquette knowledge, then you're able to broadcast positively, you're able to shine. And you know what, between you and I, whether you do or not, what I teach is irrelevant. What I want is for you to be confident because you know how to maybe do during a video conferencing or texting etiquette, because that has also evolved. Like as communication evolves, as people evolve, etiquette evolves as well.
But Julie, if there's only one or two people in a crowd that know how to behave or know a certain set of rules around a situation, and nobody else does, is it kind of like when a tree falls down in the forest and no one's around to hear it? Does it become irrelevant?
Absolutely not, because you know what to do. You're going to be confident, whether the other people do it or not. You know, and it's not up to us to go, Julie said, no, we wouldn't do anything like that. But once again, we're back at confidence and credibility. So we're able to display that. We're able to broadcast that. But more often than not, there is etiquette, and people just don't realize it. You know, a way that I like to sum up etiquette, Barbara, is when in Rome, do as Romans do. And you know, we live in this wonderful world. Actually, we live in a wonderful, wonderful country where there's this like mix of different cultures.
Well, who are the Romans in this situation?
The Canadians, the Ottawans, because you know, culture doesn't just have to do with your country of origin. I'm sure that our viewers can think about, if I tell you that the culture from this side of the river with the other side of the river, two distinct cultures.
Can you give me some examples?
The way that they interact, people interact, the way that people greet, like we were talking about before. Now, if I tell you also, if you're somewhere maybe downtown Ottawa, could you maybe pick out the people that come from the Glebe compared to the people that come from Canada, or the people that come from Orleans, or when you see someone, you say, I bet you these people are probably from Montreal. So they may have that je ne sais quoi, or even by what we visually see, by how they dress. There could be a different culture. Culture can be seen, but sometimes culture can be heard, and most of the time, not seen, not heard.
I want to talk about some of the cultural differences among people from different countries, and you had a really interesting intercultural graphic that I'd like to take a look at. If you can just pull up that graphic on intercultural trends between the different countries, so Canada, France, Italy, United States, and China. Tell us a little bit about what this graphic means.
Yeah, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
About a year ago, I got certified on intercultural intelligence. And this, of course, as you can see, is a psychometric tool that I use with my clients. So within 40 questions, less than half an hour from the comfort of your home, your office, you go online, and then poof, you get to be graphed. And I'd like to bring your attention and that of our viewers to the 5 dimensions. So let's just start way at the bottom, and then we can see, let's take a look at Canada. It's the blue square, like what you and I are wearing this evening, right? We talked before the show. So you can see that we're much more task-driven than somebody that would come from China.
What does that mean, to be task-driven?
Well, it means that during a meeting, we're going to want to know by the end of the meeting what exactly is required of us. Whereas generally, and this of course is a generality that where the person that was coming from China, they may be a lot more interested in relationship, maybe even more in consensus. And if we take a look, now if we go about towards the middle, we can see like somebody that comes from Italy may want something that's probably a bit more in the middle, having to do with certainty and uncertainty. Like they're not going to be that much of a risk taker. And take a look where the purple one is. Like it's really, really interesting where all the parallels are. The purple, the United States would be a lot more of a risk taker. So that would explain a lot of the times, even when somebody's from the same country on a team, why sometimes when you're working with someone, you get the impression like you're talking Martian. So you're going to see their values. Are they dependent, interdependent? Are they a risk taker? Are they a lot more about certainty when they communicate? Is it direct, or do they go about it like all around in a very indirect fashion? So it's very, very relevant to the people skills, to communication skills, generally speaking.
And how is it relevant to etiquette?
It's relevant to etiquette because if you remember, the etiquette is going to be the how. How is that person going to behave? How are they going to talk? How are they going to be? So it gives you some insight as to their motivators.
What are some of the biggest trends you see in the world of etiquette right now?
It's changing everywhere.
Absolutely.
Everywhere. Think about that smartphone that we don't go anywhere without. And just on that smartphone, you have social media. I mean, 10 years ago, did we really talk about social media?
No. We barely had internet.
Barely had internet. Now, texting etiquette. Did you ever think maybe 5 years ago that you would text your boss when you would be late? Probably not. You would have used the telephone. Did you ever think that maybe you would go to a restaurant and snap away a picture?
For Instagram?
For Instagram, video conferencing, wedding etiquette. Ooh la la, I'm sure that our viewers probably are invited to a wedding, maybe somewhere down south. Do they have to bring a gift or not? What do they wear? Or maybe some of them were invited to a wedding, Barbara, and they were asked to pay a certain amount. So etiquette evolves in everything. Everything. It's all around us right now.
I want to talk about technology and etiquette in a minute, but first let's talk about dining, because everybody eats and at some point we have to go out with colleagues. We're doing a business deal over lunch or just having appies and drinks after work. So how to behave yourself. And of course, the place setting is an important part of that, whether you're entertaining or being entertained. And you sent us a nice little graphic on sort of your typical place setting. Maybe we can bring that up now so we can figure out which fork to use and which spoon and knife goes where. So here's the graphic that you sent us. Can you take us through what everything is?
Yeah, so let's make it easy on our viewers. And if you're a recent graduate and you've made it to interview maybe number 3 and you're invited to lunch or dinner and you are sitting at that table, which one is my bread plate? So let's teach our viewers an acronym. The acronym is just like the car, Barbara. BMW.
BMW.
BMW. So from left to right, B is for bread. My bread plate is on the left. M, meal. My plate is in the center. And then W on the right are my wine glasses or my water glass. So once again, B for bread, M for meal, W for water or wine. And when I teach children, and I have like modern manners for young ladies and young men, I have the children put up their fingers and form a B with their left hand. So they remember that their bread plate is on their left. And using the fingers of the right hand, they form a D, so the drinks are on their right. So BMW, B, and D. So that's our place setting.
Okay. And so eat to your left, the bread is on your left, drink to your right.
Correct, correct. And then, you know, it could be 3, 4, 5, even 7-course meal. And what is important to remember for anyone going out there, and you know, you may be scratching your head, which one is for the salad? What if the salad is served after the main course, as they would do in Europe? Well, just remember, from the outside to the inside. So use your utensils starting from the outside. So you'd be going on this particular place setting this evening. We would probably start with a potage, a soup, so we would use our spoon on the outside, and then we'd be coming through on the inside. This fork could have been placed over here, and maybe we would have had something being served before, like an entree that would be served before, so maybe a smoked salmon, so we would have used the smaller fork. For the ones that are placed here at the top, these are the utensils that we're going to be using for dessert. And if you go to a very chic, fancy restaurant, the server's probably going to come behind you or to the side of you. And what he or she is going to do, they're going to be coming, and I'm just going to displace these. And what they would do, I want you and our viewers to notice where the handles are. And if you remember, here's our fork and here's our spoon. So the goal of the server or yourself, if you're in a restaurant where the server is not going to do it, is just to bring them down in the same position. So the fork would come down and the spoon would come down. And from here, you're going to be eating your dessert, and the spoon could serve as much as a spoon to go and get a coulis or ice cream that has melted, or it could be used to cut, and the fork can be used to pick or to cut as well.
You're making me really hungry.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's that time for going for a snack. Maybe some of our viewers are just going to go and get maybe that piece of pie and ice cream.
You have an interesting saying, don't do lunch just to eat and drink. What does that mean?
You know, I love, love, love that saying, especially when you're going to conduct business. What's the reason of the business meal? It's not to eat. You're not there to eat. You're not there to drink. You're there to conduct business. You could be there to celebrate someone. You could be there to honor someone. You could be there to present. You're there to build a relationship. And the same saying goes for a networking event. You know, it's the season right now. We've been inside. It's been cold. Actually, it's kind of still cold. But, you know, everybody's going out there to network. When you're going to a networking event, eat a little something before. Be ready to interact, to talk with people.
So does that mean you're not really allowed to enjoy yourself?
It doesn't mean that you're not allowed to enjoy yourself, but be cognizant of what you're sending out. You know, I love spaghetti and tomato sauce, like just a plain pomodoro. But if I'm out...
Oh, that's a big no-no.
Isn't it a big no-no? Yeah. Especially if you're wearing that impeccable white blouse or shirt, right? That would be a big no-no. So think about it. Yeah. Set yourself up for success.
Julie, I want to hear more about some of the rules around dining, and also how to be a good host and how to be a good guest, and what are the kinds of things you do when you've been invited out for a meal, and how do you behave yourself accordingly when we come back from the break. Please don't forget, if you have any questions for Julie tonight, there's a number at the bottom of your screen. If you've got any issues or concerns or questions around etiquette in any area of your life, maybe you're attending a wedding or something else has come up and you want to ask for Julie's expert advice, she's excited to hear from you. So don't go away. We'll be right back with lots more, including how to conduct yourself in the areas of technology, networking, and on the airplane. We'll be right back. Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and on tonight's show, we're giving you a lesson in modern etiquette so you can learn how to behave yourself with finesse in all sorts of situations, whether you're in the boardroom or on the plane or over at someone's house for the first time. We've got Blais Comeau, who is joining us tonight to share her expertise with us. Thanks again for joining us. Before we went to break, Julie, we talked a little bit about food and dining and place settings. I had a few more questions I wanted to ask you on that topic. If your host invites you out for a meal, should you always be cognizant of the dollar amount that they're spending on themselves? Should you only order, for example, an entree that is equal to or lesser in value than what they're ordering? What are some of the potential minefields there that we need to navigate?
That is certainly a minefield, and especially in 2016, where per diems and expense accounts are a lot less than what it used to be. Actually, on the flip side of that, as the host, when you are the person that is inviting, here too, Barbara, I would recommend that you set yourself up for success. And what that means is that you're going to go to a restaurant, you're going to go to a venue that you know very well, but more importantly, where they know you and they recognize you. So what you could do is that you're going to go to the restaurant ahead of time and you're going to set up the menu. So you may say to the maitre d', to the manager, to the server, well, these are the options that I would like. Today, you know, I'd like to spend X amount of dollars, including maybe a glass of wine for my guest and I, etc. And most of the restaurants, and they're really, really good here in Ottawa, will probably make you up a nice menu card with limited choices. So that way, as a host, you're not going to have a big surprise should your guests not follow along in your footsteps and stay safely within the boundaries of what you're going to be ordering. So that's a great tip. Go somewhere where they know you, set it up ahead of time, make it as easy as possible.
So they'll actually customize a menu for you, print it off and give it to you?
Yes, it's just the cost of like printing like two simple menus, and the choices are very clear. The official menu never comes to the table, and the two pieces of paper that are there don't even have prices on it.
So what are some restaurants in town that do that for you?
Oh, just about anywhere. Like it's something that's very simple to do, and it's not that well known. And also what I would recommend is, as a host, you give your credit card ahead of time.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yes, with e-receipts, they will send you everything afterwards. You let them know ahead of time how much of a tip you want to give them, and then, you know, it's all done.
That's nothing worse than fighting for the bill when you've chosen to take someone out for dinner.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And if you are the host, you want to avoid that situation. That is embarrassing, and you know, as you say, like it ends on a bad note. So you want to make sure that the bill never even comes to the table. In a scenario where you were not able to leave your credit card ahead of time, what you want to do, and I'm sure that a lot of our viewers have done this before, you're gently going to go maybe like just before dessert, and you're going to go and settle up the bill so that it does not come to the table.
So what if you're going to someone's house for the first time? Do you bring a gift? If so, what's the monetary value? And do you only bring a gift the first time you go to someone's home?
You know, etiquette has to do with a lot of rituals, a lot of customs. And these days, host gifts are very, very popular. But in reality, the rule of etiquette for hosting is when you're invited to someone's house, the rule is to reciprocate. You should usually reciprocate within the season, within probably about 3 months. But I don't know about Barbara, but like life is so quick these days. Who knows if I'll have time, if you invite me here probably for the beginning of summer, if I'll have time to host you again before Labor Day. So what I do to disengage myself from the obligation of inviting you to my home, I'm going to show up with a hostess gift. So that way we're fair and square. So that's the origin of that.
I see, that's very interesting. We talked a little bit about some of the foods to avoid when you're out and about and trying to make an impression. Obviously, Spaghetti with tomato sauce is a big one, especially as we enter the summer season and we tend to wear lighter colors than usual.
Yeah.
What are some other foods, maybe some snack foods that you should avoid to not find yourself in an uncomfortable situation or with stuff down your brand new suit?
It depends where you are. It depends what you're doing. If you're invited somewhere in the Maritimes for a lobster bake and you're on the shore, you're at the beach, you're wearing jeans, you're flip-flops and your favorite hoodie, and everybody's having lobster with their hands, well, that's how it is, remember.
Do as the Romans do.
Exactly, exactly. So it all depends on where you are. So usually the venue will dictate how to act, right? There will be a certain code of behavior. Usually the time of day would also impact. And a lot of times people want to know, how should I dress? Well, keep in mind the venue, the time of day, and what the activity, what the event, what is it all about? And when somebody really, really wants to know, there'll never be a faux pas by asking. You know, my maternal grandmother, Barbara, was Florina Selva. She wasn't a very educated woman, but she was very, very curious. And she would ask people questions. And what she would say to me when I would say, you know, Grandma, I'm not sure what to do. And she would always say, you know, Julie, it's not that complicated. When in doubt, find out. So if you're invited to this fancy dinner and you've never had escargot, and I'm sure some of our viewers can probably remember the Pretty Woman scene.
Oh yes, that's
right?
my favorite scene.
Isn't it? And just a great movie. And so, you know, you would say, well, I've never had escargot before. Like, how should I go about this? So when in doubt, find out. You're going somewhere, not too sure about the dress code. When in doubt, find out. First time that you're being presented with chopsticks or anything, when in doubt, find out.
And isn't part of etiquette not just about not making blunders, but also when you do make that blunder, or when you see someone making that blunder, pretending it never happened or not acknowledging it? Like that scene that you mentioned in Pretty Woman, when Julia Roberts sends the escargot flying, the waiter just kind of snaps it up and acts like nothing happened.
Yeah. And you know, the gentleman there, the elderly gentleman, oh, it happens all the time, right? So everybody can relax. Let me give you a little anecdote of etiquette folklore. So let's go back in time and let's go back to the 50s. And we're at Buckingham Palace, where Her Majesty, our Queen Elizabeth II, is hosting a banquet. And she's hosting a banquet for Edith Piaf, the famous singer. So we're towards the end of the meal, and you have these very elegant servers that are probably wearing tails and white gloves, and they're holding these silver trays. And they come out and they serve each one of us a small bowl. And in that bowl is a clear liquid.
Oh, I can see where this is going.
Right? And you can see a fine, very thin slice of lemon. So Madame Piaf takes the bowl, smells, and begins to drink. What do you think Her Majesty Elizabeth II does?
The same thing.
She drinks. And then, so what would all of us that are attending this beautiful banquet, what would we do? We would just drink along. So you're absolutely right. It's not about making other people feel uncomfortable, but the goal of etiquette is to bring a certain level, right? Everybody on par, because everybody will be doing similar things, pretty much the same thing. So what we can focus on is the people. We can get to know each other because we're all in sync. That's the goal.
I love that story. That's a great story. I want to move on to technology, smartphones, email, texting. First of all, smartphones. They drive me crazy.
Yeah.
When should we turn them off?
Well, as soon as you're in the company of somebody else, because let's pretend this is a smartphone and we put it there. And I come in and I put it there. All of a sudden, Barbara, we're in a ménage à trois. And I didn't ask you permission to invite this piece of technology, and it's going to beep, it's going to vibrate, and all of a sudden, it's going to get all of our attention. So FaceTime, what we want to have is that real FaceTime. We want to have that connection, not the Apple kind. What we want is FaceTime instead of screen time. So it should be turned off in the company of others. And of course, we understand that there could be exceptions. Maybe you're a lifeline to a loved one at home. Maybe you're waiting for some information for the business that you're conducting. So when I'm going to get there, I'm going to say, Barbara, you know, I'm expecting a call. You're going to let the person know when that call comes in. You'll excuse yourself. You'll be gone just a few minutes. Come on back and keep going.
So when someone calls you or texts you, how long is it appropriate to wait before calling or texting them back in this age where everyone is expected to be available 24/7?
Yes, well, it all depends. You know, in business, when you have a new client, when there's somebody new that you're conducting business with, you should validate with them what their expectation is. First of all, would they prefer receiving a phone call? Would they prefer getting an email? Some people want texting. Some people even like to communicate by private message on Facebook. So validate that. Within a team at work, what's the appropriate response time? Used to be when I would teach email etiquette, we were talking about a delay of 72 hours. Like everybody at home is going, what? 72 hours? That's 3 days, Julie. And within a team, usually an email within the same day. So general rule of thumb, when you're beginning a relationship, at first should be an acknowledgement within 24 hours. 24 hours. And sometimes you need to do research. And I'm thinking maybe an email or a phone call. You know what, Barbara, I'm on it, but give me a couple of days and I'll get back to you. But I wanted you to know that I did receive your email, that I did get your phone call. So it depends, but validate at the onset.
Interesting. You know, I heard a saying and I just loved it. The phone is there for my convenience, not the caller's, but I don't think people think of it that way anymore.
No, it depends. It really depends on your relationship. Let's say that your client is elderly. That person may want to even have coffee, see you face to face and have a coffee with you as opposed to a text, as opposed to anything else. I'll give you a very concrete example. My father just turned 80 years old, and a couple of years ago, he had one of the smartphones. He had to get it, right, to conduct business. And my niece was trying to get a hold of him by texting. Well, he would be on the phone with his secretary, and he would hear beep, 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 and he would say, Mish, I have to let you go because my battery's dying. So he would always hang up, but all along, Sasha was trying to text him. My father didn't know he had texted him. Maybe he did, but he didn't pay any attention to it. So it's really important to validate the expectations of communication.
Do you think that phone conversation is a lost art? I've noticed that people prefer to text and email these days. A lot of people won't pick up the phone, they screen their calls. I've even heard of some companies actually hiring individuals like yourselves to come into call centers, for example, and teach people how to talk on the phone.
Yes, and there's a certain level of empathy that's getting lost with all the time that we're spending in front of our screens. And this is not Julie says or the etiquette expert says. These are studies that are done by psychologists where society is evolving and the younger generation, the children, are having difficulty decoding the face, all this non-verbal expressions, and also the intonations that we hear on the telephone. So is it a lost art? I don't know. Some people are still having phone conversations. And as a service provider, though, what I can assure you, it's certainly up to me to adapt to what the people that I serve would like, to use the appropriate medium for the appropriate means. So sometimes a phone call is better. If you're running late, definitely pick up the phone. Sending a text is going to put you in a situation where the person's going to text back, when are you coming in? And sometimes it could be unsafe. So pick up the phone, explain to the person that you're being delayed, let them know when you're going to be there, and if they say, you know what, chances are I may be gone, you have the chance to readjust your plans. So it depends on the situation.
And isn't it interesting in this day and age where so many people are sending emails that something as old-fashioned as picking up the phone and calling someone might get you more immediate results?
Absolutely, absolutely. Think about it also for the people that are cold calling. With email, it's like we have this sea of email. It's not uncommon for me, a solopreneur, as we're now called these days, to get 50 emails a day. People write to me from all over the world. There's sticky situations. I have a blog in the Huffington Post, and when I'm going to give a conference or workshop or what have you. So, and the usual number is about 75 for each employee. So it's this vast sea. But how many phone calls a day do you get these days? So it could be a way to bring attention.
Mm-hmm. Is it rude to take a photo of your food and put it on Instagram?
Fascinating. If you were to ask the restaurant owners, the managers, who maybe would flip, as they call it, tables, maybe 3 times, 4 times during the evening, because of this new phenomena of social media, I'm going to take a picture of my food. I'm going to take a picture of me, the person that's with me, and the food. I'm going to take a picture of me and my server. Well, 1 click, 2 click, 3 clicks, maybe now we've extended our meal by 20 minutes, not counting that I'm texting, the other person's texting, so the food comes, it's not hot, it's too hot, what have you. So we've lengthened the amount of time that we're spending in the restaurant. And so it's certainly having challenges. Is it appropriate? It depends. But what I can tell you, some venues are now forbidding technology.
Really?
When you enter their restaurant, you cannot text, you cannot take pictures, and you cannot receive any calls.
That's kind of refreshing.
Isn't it? Yeah. So you can focus on the people.
That's such a novel concept.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you're spending good money out there.
Of course, of course. I want to talk about Facebook. People take it so seriously if you decline a friend request, for example, or you unfriend them or you block them. What are some sticky social networking situations people get into, and how do you avoid them?
Exactly those. I think that from a social media perspective, there's Facebook, there's LinkedIn, and there's so many of them. So to use the proper channel, the proper media for the reason that you want to be there. From my perspective, I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is made especially for conducting professional business. It should be, in essence, a mutual connection. In Facebook, it's your friends, but you have the right to decline. You have the right to decline. Who comes into your world, who gets to see into your world, it's up to you. And don't take it personally, it should be up to the person to decide who they want to have, what kind of relationship they want to have with. Now, you've asked me about sticky situations. Of course, with family members, there can be a lot of hurt feelings, frustrations, all kinds of sticky situations. So really think about it before you unfriend someone. And 24-hour rule, maybe 48 hours, something's happened in the family, and then you go right to your Facebook. That's it. I'm blocking them. Think about it. Talk about it with a friend. Talk about it with your spouse.
It's interesting how that can be seen as a real act of war, unfriending someone on Facebook.
Absolutely. It's like you're declaring war, and they won't know it right away. But then if they investigate a little bit, they may find out. They may find out.
What about video conferencing, Skype, FaceTime? What are some things people need to know?
Well, first of all, you have to know that you have to dress fully because the doorbell could ring.
And you forget that you're not wearing
exactly.
pants.
You're wearing shorts. You're not wearing pants. You're wearing your boxers. So be aware of that. Be aware also of the background. In my office, I have a setup where I have my diplomas. I have a plant. It's very tidy. People will judge, Barbara, from what they see during that video conferencing. It's pretty much like a TV reality. It's not just about showing up. Do your hair, put on your makeup. You should look like what you look like if you were conducting business face-to-face with that person. So that's the visual aspect. Also, keep in mind whatever's going on in the background. If you happen to have somebody that comes over and mows your lawn, first of all, lucky you, right? Well, if he comes every Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock and you scheduled video conferencing, what are they going to hear in the background?
Not something they want to hear.
No, the pets. Is it okay for Fluffy, Muffy to come and jump on your desk? If you work for SPCA, absolutely. But generally speaking, no. If you're a new mom, is it okay? Like, how are you going to be able to focus on the business? Most of us that are moms would say, yes, I'm probably able to. But if your child has been sick, maybe you should reschedule. It depends. So be cognizant of the sights, the sounds that are going to be coming out through video conferencing, because it really is TV reality.
All great things to keep in mind, Julie. When we come back, I want to hear your thoughts on how to network with finesse and how to dress for success. So don't go away. We'll be right back after the break. And don't forget to call the number at the bottom of your screen if you have any questions for Julie tonight. See you after the break. Welcome back to Auto Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and on tonight's show, we're talking about etiquette and how to conduct yourself with finesse in all sorts of areas of your life. Right now, we're going to be talking about networking, especially when you're an introvert, Julie. So if you really sort of break out into a cold sweat at the thought of walking into a room where you know barely anybody, how do you survive? How can you prepare for this kind of situation, and how do you make the most out of it?
Mm-hmm. You know, networking doesn't even come too easy to us that are extroverts. Everybody sort of like panics at the thought, what am I going to talk about? And here's the deal. It's not about pushing yourself. It's not about selling yourself. What I like to do, and you know, I talk about this inside of my book, I even have a networking aid to build that elevator pitch, but I have all kinds of thoughts on elevator pitches. But what you should keep in mind when you go to a networking event is, how can I help you? How can I help that person? If I can't help you, maybe there's somebody in my network. So you want to ask questions to the other person. That's what it's all about. It's trying to find a fit and trying to find out, what does that person need? What kind of client is their ideal client? What kind of deal are they looking for? What's their next goal? And then it's up to us to find out, okay, is that something where I can help them? Is that a service that I offer? Is that a product that I sell? If not me, well, maybe somebody else. So that's the goal of networking, is how can I help you? How may I serve you? And if you go in there with that philosophy, it should make you breathe, because you want to find out about the other person. What do they do?
How do you develop the perfect elevator pitch?
You know, there is no such thing. There is no such thing, especially based upon what I just said. What you want to find out is what the other person does. And from there, you should know on the tip of your fingers what you do and what are its benefits and how there can be a match. You know, and that's what it's all about. Some people come in and they have this rehearsed over and over again elevator pitch that they do in X amount of seconds flat. And let's say, you know, I come in, hi, I'm Julie Blais Comeau. I sell the very best lawnmower in the land. You know, my lawnmower does your grass in 22 seconds flat. It's safe, blah, 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 blah. And you know what? Why don't you give me your business card? I'm going to come over and demonstrate my lawnmower. Guess what, Barbara? I live in a condo, and I chose to live in a condo because I don't want to mow grass anymore. So you should find out about the other person. The best elevator pitch changes. It evolves based on who the other person is that you just met.
So basically talk to the person, not at them.
Yes, and listen. Yeah. Listen. What do they need? What are they in the market for?
Do people still use business cards?
Yes, they do. The business card is sort of like a coveted connection. Granted, these days, a lot of the times when we first connect, the introduction could be virtual, could be by email. But when you get that business card basically says, I'm giving you permission to contact me by phone, you can send something, you can drop by email. So it's handing out all of your contact, all of your communication channels then become open. And on the note of a business card, it is considered rude to ask for someone's business card.
Really? How come?
Because it's like you're saying, like, give me all your business, give me access to all of you. Whereas if I think there is a match and I think that I can serve you, may I offer you my card? There's a big distinction. Can I have your card? May I offer you my card? By saying, may I offer you my card, then the other person can make the decision whether or not there's a match, and they can decide whether or not they want to give you their card.
So you let them feel like they're in control.
Absolutely,
That's
absolutely.
Very wise, very wise. Julie, I want to talk about how you can dress for success. And with the summer just around the corner, dress codes are becoming a little bit relaxed. You've actually sent us a few infographics on 4 different kinds of dress codes. There's business casual, black tie. Let's pull some of those up on the screen and learn a little bit more. So first off, we've got business casual.
Yes, so for the business casual, what is interesting, Barbara, is that generally speaking, business casual does not include wearing jeans. Really? So it depends on the culture of the organization, and foremost, dressing in business is dressing for, and we should almost have a drum roll here, dressing for your client. When your client sees you, does business casual make sense to him or her? And generally speaking, jeans are not included. Generally speaking, there should be a collar. Generally speaking, there should be no bare shoulders. But it all depends. And you know, the most important rule is, what does HR say? When you're new to an organization, or when the seasons, summer reappears, go back to the HR policy. What is the dress code of our organization, of our company? What do I have to keep in mind? And are those flip-flops appropriate at your place of work? Could be, but most of the time they're not.
How much cleavage is too much?
Well, it depends. Whatever you're showing may get noticed. By a rule of thumb, I have a great way of doing this. So ladies, listen up. It's called hand high, hand low. So hand high, I take my hand, Barbara, I put it in that, you know, that little hole that's here, and I would come down here. And where my pinky ends is usually a good cleavage, but it depends. It comes, you know, our breasts come in all sizes, in all forms, you know, a bra can certainly impact. So that would be appropriate. And as far as a hemline goes, you would take that same hand, and let's say this is the knee. This is the kneecap. If I put my pinky here, where my thumb ends would be as short as the hemline could be. So hand high, hand low for cleavage and the length of a skirt or a dress. But it depends on your size, it depends on what you do, and keep in mind when you're sitting down, we all know this, ladies, what's going to happen to our skirt, what's going to happen to dress, it's going to go up. So look at yourself in the mirror before you leave home. And when you're bending over as well.
Yeah. What are the big no-nos for gentlemen?
The big no-nos for a gentleman could be wearing those flip-flops. And I'll tell you why I don't like flip-flops at the office. If you're a gentleman and you're a big boss, do you want your employees to see your big toe? Probably not. What about the sound of flip-flops? You're going to be going around the office, flip-flop, flip-flop, and that's going to be distracting. What if it's 30, 32 degrees outside and you go for a walk and you come back in? There could be a scent. For some of the men also wearing white socks inside of their shoe, well, the simple reason is it's going to attract. You're going to see, do you want people to look at your socks, or do you want them to listen to what you're saying? Clothing, attire basically says what we do in the work world. So whatever you're wearing, you know, if it's going to distract from your message, think about it. Do you want it to come? And the same thing for accessories. If you're wearing 10 rings, well, I'm probably going to be fascinated by those rings. And I'm going to ask you, tell me about that one. Tell me about that one, instead of listening to what you're saying.
Didn't Coco Chanel say the rule of thumb is to get dressed and then before you leave the house, remove one thing?
Remove one before you leave the house. And you know, there's a general rule of about 12 accessories at the very most. And that includes your glasses, could include when you have a highlight that maybe is purple, which could be trendy or something like that. So you want people to listen to what you're saying, not to be observing and coming, oh, that's so great. Where did you get that? That's beautiful. In essence, you don't want people to say, wow, what a great outfit. You want them to say, wow, he makes sense.
Yes.
Wow, that's really a great leader. That's what you want.
We've got a few minutes left before the end of our show tonight. I wanted to go into business travel because that's a big part of our lives more and more, and how we conduct ourselves on the airplane. There's a great website called passengershaming.com where you can see some photos of some of the atrocious behavior that people do on the plane, putting their feet up on the chair, clipping their nails, flipping their hair or their coat on the seat behind them. Riding or being on a plane is often such a miserable existence.
Yes.
We're all cramped, we're all fighting for space, so how can we do so, still occupy our space without being completely barbaric towards our neighbors?
Yes. Well, let's make that even wider, Barbara. Let's include in there public transportation. When we go on the bus, when we go on the train, everywhere, we should be cognizant of the sights. What are people going to see? The sounds. So that could apply to our smartphones. So sights, sounds, the smell. What if we choose to bring in a snack? Right? What are people going to smell? Body odor could be one. Sights, smells, the sounds, and safety. We want to make sure that whatever we do, whether it's on the airplane, the train, the bus, is going to be safe. So when it's raining and I have my umbrella, I should make sure that it's between my legs. When I'm walking aboard that airplane and I have a backpack or my children have a backpack, I probably want to make sure that it's in front because in the back I can't see where it goes. Same thing on the bus. If you sometimes turn and your backpack is there and you have lots of stuff, you have books, you're an outstanding student, but then all of a sudden you turn around and there's someone that may be a little bit shorter, you could have bumped somebody out of the way. So be cognizant of sight, sounds, smells, and at all times, safety. So that goes for anything having to do with public transportation.
And when is it polite to make conversation with the person next to you or to say hello? I noticed in Europe, if you're on a train or a plane, the person sitting next to you always says hello, but you rarely see that in North America.
Well, I don't know about you, but I always do it. First of all, if anything's going to happen, I sort of want to have that connection. I guess that's for my safety. So I'll come in on the plane or on the train where I know that I'm going to be traveling for a while, except for on the bus. And I'm going to put up my hand. I'm going to introduce myself, maybe just by first name. Maybe I don't want to say my first and last name, whereas in a networking event, definitely first and last name all the time and what you do. So I'm going to, hi, my name is Julie, and then I'm going to sort of feel out the person. Sometimes someone may like to chat because they're nervous. Sometimes you may like to chat because you're bored or what have you. So just limit the boundaries. Sometimes it could be appropriate, sometimes not. Observe the nonverbal clues from the other person, whether or not they're in that chatty mood.
If you don't feel like talking, is the best way to deal with the situation to just carry a pair of headphones with you and put them in?
Love it. That's a great tip. You could definitely do that, or go inside of your book, or if sometimes somebody could insist and you could say, you know, I really don't get a lot of me time, so I brought this great book with me, so I'm just gonna, you know, relax and get into my book. That's all.
That's lovely, Julie. You've given us so much, a wealth of information, very, very useful tips, and our viewers are lucky to have had you tonight. We're almost at the end of our show. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my website, etiquettejulie.com. If they have questions, julie@etiquettejulie.com. Let's see, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's LinkedIn, and there's Twitter. So any way that they want to communicate with me, I'm open, and any sticky situation, I'll be glad to answer.
Do you have any upcoming events?
I have a few events that are private events. I'm going to have some public events coming up for children, for modern manners, and also one-on-one coaching for anybody that wants to take their career to the next level.
Thank you so much, Julie. Don't forget to come back next week to watch my colleague in the studio, Moni Dojeje. Thanks you so much for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful night.